Hello and welcome to Mickeyology, where animation meets history. I'm Austin Rafael, and today we're going to attempt the impossible. We'll try to determine when and where the Shrek films take place. If you've ever seen a Shrek movie, and at this point who hasn't, you know a lot of the humor in those films comes from anachronisms. These movies constantly throw modern stuff into an olden days world, and it makes us laugh. However, these jokes make it practically impossible to determine when and where the films take place. If you were really strict about it, you'd have to conclude that the movies take place in modern times, because there's no other way to explain how Farquaad could put an animatronic welcome sign in Duloc, or how Donkey knows all the words to Livin' La Vida Loca. Or maybe you'd have to assume that the movies take place in some alternate or post-apocalyptic reality in which the culture of modern Beverly Hills merged with that of Chivalry Age Europe. Even if you excuse many of the anachronisms, it's still difficult to place the films because they drop references to many different historical eras, including the Crusades,
just the old Crusade wound playing up a bit,
the Renaissance,
two Renaissance raps,
France's Ancien Regime,
is this really necessary?
and the Industrial Revolution. So how can we possibly make sense of it all? While we don't really think about it while we're watching these films, we, the audience, know there's a logically consistent world somewhere beneath the anachronisms. After all, the modern references wouldn't be funny to us unless we knew that these movies were supposed to take place in the past. The Shrek series operates on Flintstones logic. The technology and lifestyles we see in that show are analogous to those of modern times, but at the end of the day, the audience knows that the Flintstones takes place in the Stone Age. That's the foundation on which all its comedy rests. So our question is, what is Shrek's foundation? What time and place does Shrek rest on, so to speak? Let's find out by analyzing the clues hidden in the films. There are four major regions in the Shrek films. First is Duloc and its surrounding countryside. This is where Shrek, Donkey, Farquaad, and the fairy tale creatures live in the first film. Then there's Far, Far Away, Fiona's home kingdom. This is where much of the second, third, and fourth movies take place. Then there's Artystown, home of Worcestershire High School.
It's Worcestershire,
Where Shrek and friends find him in Shrek the Third. Finally, there's the Spanish-looking world of Puss in Boots, where his two spin-off films take place. The last two locations are easy to identify. We know Arthur's home must be in England, since Arthur is a legendary English king, and Worcestershire
it's Worcestershire,
is a real English county. We know Puss in Boots comes from Spain because he lives in places with Spanish names, and some of them are real Spanish towns like Pamplona and Cordoba.
Let's see. There was the running of the bulls in Pamplona.
So what about Duloc and Far, Far Away? Where are they located? Well, in Shrek 2, we see Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey take a long carriage ride from Duloc to Far, Far Away. So we know that you can travel from Duloc to Far, Far Away by land. In Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, we see Puss and his friends sailing to Far, Far Away. So we know Far, Far Away is located on a coast relatively close to Spain. That's a start, but we need more information. Let's see what the filmmakers can tell us. The many filmmakers that brought the Shrek films to life have said very little about when and where the films are supposed to take place. When they do describe the film setting, they almost always use the word medieval. For example, in the book Shrek from the Swamp to the Screen, it says filmmakers created a medieval world and calls Far, Far Away a medieval version of Beverly Hills. The medieval era took place between the fall of Rome in the 5th century and the Renaissance, which began around the 14th century. Therefore, the Shrek films likely take place sometime in that broad period. Filmmakers also dropped a few hints about where the films take place. In the book The Art of Dreamworks Animation, production designer Guillaume Aretos said that for the first movie, the artists, quote, were influenced by the Mediterranean tones of Italy. If the first film was inspired by Italy, and the first film takes place largely in Duloc, then Duloc might be in Italy. Italy has fields of sunflowers like those we see in the movie, and this stark, solitary Italian castle, Castel del Monte, also resembles Lord Farquaad's stark, solitary castle in the film. In another interview, Areto said Far, Far Away Castle was inspired by the Chateau Chalin-le-Potherie, an obscure castle located in France. If Fiona's parents live in a French-style castle, that might mean they live in France. Before we can confirm all this, however, we should take a look at the film's props and costumes. Most of the human characters in Shrek wear clothing resembling the clothes Europeans wore in the medieval and Renaissance periods. Lord Farquaad's clothing and haircut resemble those found in portraits of Italian Renaissance figures like Lorenzo de' Medici. Farquaad also has a portrait of himself above his bed, which is based on The Birth of Venus, a famous painting from the Italian Renaissance. This seems to confirm that Duloc is in Italy. Meanwhile, over in Far, Far Away, at the beginning of Shrek III, Shrek and Fiona are forced to wear these elaborate royal outfits which were inspired by the clothing worn by Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette lived long after the medieval period, but she was the Queen of France, so these outfits might be a clue that Far, Far Away is located there. King Harold dresses in a blue outfit covered in gold three-point clovers, or trefoils. This pattern is very similar to the old French coat of arms, which was blue and covered in gold fleur-de-lis. This seems to confirm that Far, Far Away is in France. If we assume Duloc is in Italy and Far, Far Away is in France, then the geography of the movies makes sense. If Duloc is in Italy, then Shrek and Fiona would be able to reach France by land, and Puss in Boots would be able to sail to France from Spain. Shrek would also have to sail from Far, Far Away if he wanted to reach England, and he does sail in Shrek III. That clears up where the films take place. All that's left is to determine when they take place. In the first Puss in Boots movie, Humpty Dumpty uses a flying machine that looks a lot like the ones Leonardo da Vinci designed, so the movie may take place around da Vinci's time. In Shrek III, Shrek has a nightmare in which he stands naked on stage during his graduation. A sign at the back of the auditorium says, "Congratulations, class of 1409, with 1409 written in Roman numerals. This is presumably the year of Shrek's high school graduation, which would mean that Shrek lives sometime in the mid-1400s. On the DVD special features of Shrek 2, filmmakers included pages from a fictional newspaper called Far, Far Away Times, which shows headlines covering events from Shrek 2. Each page is dated June 10, 1422, which confirms that the series takes place in the 1400s. The 15th century is a logical setting for these films, since although it was after the medieval era, it was close enough to it that Europe would still look much like it did in medieval times, so it can still be called a medieval world. The 15th century was also the century in which playing cards and rapiers were developed, and Puss in Boots uses both of those in his films. Spanish soldiers also wore uniforms like these in the 15th century. Botticelli painted The Birth of Venus in the 15th century, and Da Vinci designed his flying machines in the 15th century too. Based on the film's geography, props, costumes, and statements from its filmmakers, I'm placing the Shrek films in Italy, Spain, England, and France in the 15th century. So, there you have it. That is my theory for when and where the Shrek films take place. Please let me know what you think of my conclusions and when and where you think these movies take place. Thank you very much for being a supporter on Patreon. I hope you enjoyed this exclusive, and you can look forward to more exclusives like this every single month. Please let me know which Disney or maybe non-Disney movie you would like me to analyze next. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.